Welcome to Board Bag Studio, the podcast where I talk to snowboarders about their habits regarding fitness, health, and everything else. Today I have a special episode for you. I spoke with High Cascade medic Chelsea Tomlinson about concussions. For this episode, I spoke with Chelsea in her living room in Silverthorne, Colorado. I was on a road trip across the country from Los Angeles to Minnesota, where I'm going to be spending the holidays with my family. And like I said, it's a special episode because we pretty much just tackle one subject, and that is concussions. What to do when you get one, what to do when you think you get one, if your friend gets one. Just a lot of warning signs to look for. I think it's a really important topic that people should know as much as they can about. If you just want to be quick and dirty and hear the CDC recommendations for post-concussion, we talk about that stuff at about 18 minutes. And we talk about warning signs of brain bleed, which is super important, around 21 minutes and 45 seconds. And I'll preface by saying that neither one of us is an expert, and this is no replacement for professional medical opinion. But, you know, it's a good conversation to have. It's good to be aware. Chelsea, like I said, she was a medic and is a medic for High Cascade, and I guess now We Are Camp, Windells as well. She has a bachelor's degree in biology and Spanish. She has been a medic for We Are Camp for 4 years now, and so she's seen a lot of concussions, a lot of kids and even staff as well getting concussions, and she's taken care of it a lot. Her mom even has an experience with brain injury, so she's got a lot to say about the topic, and I do as well, and I had a lot of questions, so it was really cool to get some of those questions answered. She talked about some misconceptions that people have, and anyways, throughout the episode, we're going to be talking about all sorts of things that you should know. We even talk about helmets, wearing a helmet, the reason that I wear a helmet, and, you know, we're not trying to push anything on anybody. Everything is a personal choice if you choose to wear a helmet or not. It's just good to be informed either way. So, without further ado, give it up for Chelsea Tomlinson. Hey, Chelsea.
Hey, Jesse.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Of course. How are you doing today?
Doing good. Good. Just getting ready to hit the road tomorrow and getting the dog ready for the holidays and all the family stuff. So,
yeah. Where are you headed this holiday?
Suburbs of Chicago.
Awesome.
So nice.
And that's where you grew up?
Yeah, grew up there.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I appreciate you letting me stay here on my long road trip from LA to Minnesota.
Yeah, of course.
I was in Salt Lake this morning, and I talked to Bodie, and now here I am in Colorado, and I'm talking to you, and I'm grateful to be here. So
Sweet. Yeah, awesome.
So let's get right into it. You were and are a High Cascade medic, right? Still?
Yep. Yeah, it's my 4th year. 3 years as like lead medic, so to speak, for Windells and High Cascade now.
4 years.
Yeah, 4 years out there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
Yeah. Can't keep me off that glacier.
Yeah. Have you had an interest in being a medic for a long time?
Yeah, I originally thought I was going to do nursing school and got into that and ended up just doing biology, but still kind of had that as like a hobby. So I got my wilderness first responders cert my last year up at Northern in Michigan. So
okay.
Yeah, and then
cool. Then got hired by camp?
By Nurse Greg. Yep.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. Turns out my best friend is Nurse Greg's son. So drunk Dave Kerwin. So yeah, he hooked it up and cool. Sent it out to Oregon. It was 2015. It was my first year out there.
Nice.
And yeah, Nurse Greg is, kind of a legend if you've ever spent any time on Mount Hood.
Oh yeah.
And he's definitely where I learned a lot of the stuff I, put to use every day. So yeah, I've worked at Windells Academy as a medic too, and then working in Colorado with teenagers as a kind of like a medic, kind of one-on-one with the team. So yeah, he kind of opened the door to do all that.
Cool.
So yeah.
And so you have a bachelor's degree in biology?
Yeah, in Spanish, which is
In
super
Spanish.
random. Yeah.
Cool. Nice.
Probably never use it, but yeah.
Do you think biology has informed your medic profession?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It definitely translates a lot. Yeah. I didn't do all the nursing stuff, but just knowing like the physiology of
Living things.
of a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Like all the injuries we see, mostly like broken bones and stuff like that, head injuries, all that. So yeah, it definitely is like a background for it for sure.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
And what's your background with snowboarding?
I've been snowboarding since I was in 7th grade. So this is like my 16th season, I think.
Cool.
So yeah, it's
Damn.
been for a while. I know, it's
That's
crazy.
impressive.
I should be way better at this point. But yeah, I worked at Raging Buffalo through high school. I started working there in 2007. Did that till like 2012 on and off. So
Cool.
did the tow rope life for a bit.
Yeah.
And then moved up north to NMU in Michigan, up in Marquette, and just, went to Mount Bohemia. That whole scene up there is so much fun. So yeah, it's kind of
cool. And so this is a fairly special episode because we are going to be talking about a sort of a specified topic. But before we get into that, as far as concussions and head injuries and things like that, I'm curious about some things about being a medic. First of all, what's the most common thing you see?
Probably either broken collarbones, concussions, and just like broken wrists are probably the top 3. Yeah. That skate park will get kids with the wrists, and then skiers love to break their collarbones. So I see that a lot with the Windells kids.
Yeah.
And then concussions. I probably see like on average, I would say like 3 a day is pretty average. Some days are
3
more.
3 a day. Wow.
I would say is like
That
average.
prevalent.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I mean, there are days where we don't have any, and then there's a day where we'll get like 5 or, so it's super hit or miss. It's hard to really, it's like people say, day 5 is activity day. It's going to be mellow day on hill. Yeah. And sometimes I'll have the most injuries that day. So we never really know how it's going to play out. But yeah, definitely broken bones are probably the most prevalent in concussions. So yeah.
And how do you mitigate the stress and just freaking out that the kids inevitably have?
Yeah, it's pretty awful sometimes. I would say the worst part is probably the parents, to be completely honest. The kids are usually just bummed because they know their week at camp is ended a little early.
Yeah.
So I would say the parents are more stressed just because they're could be 1,000 miles
baby.
away and right. So my team is awesome. They take the brunt of that, and then we do all like the parent phone calls and stuff like that. So it's just days are crazy. They're long, but it's still so fun. Just you're up on the glacier and with all your friends, and you just take one day at a time. And
so fun.
Yeah,
just dealing with people with broken bones and concussions. Sounds like a blast.
Yeah, I always joke. I'm like, I got to take a snowboard lap without my backpack today, so that was that would be a good day. But no, we're busy, but I love it. I like helping people and being there for the kids, and I'm also a nanny, so that's just kind of like my kind of instinct. So I'm glad that I can be there for them when they're 1,000 miles away from home and they have to go to the hospital and they're scared. And I'm trying to think, if I was like 12 and that happened to me at camp, I'd be pretty freaked out about it. No, it can be crazy at times for sure, but it's more fun than not. So I keep doing it, I guess.
I can imagine those kids are very grateful to have a medic who is also a nanny, because you kind of understand how they work and what makes them happy and how to comfort them. Things
sometimes
like
it's like too much. I'm like, all right, I'm not. It's like when you get a line out the door of kids that are hurt, you don't want to mom them too much. But no, for sure. Yeah, my team does a really good job with kind of having a line between acting like mom and then acting like, the nurse. So yeah. The mom thing, sometimes the kids kind of just like lean towards that because they're scared and they're away from home. But yeah. Yeah, it's fun. I still love it.
Cool.
Getting ready for another summer. So
yeah. When do you get up there usually?
Usually kind of like mid to end of April. We'll go and kind of do some preseason stuff out there. So yeah, so I'll be in Colorado till April. Hopefully going to Mammoth for a little bit and then headed that way.
Cool.
So yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sweet. Well, so concussions are very common.
Yes.
And especially at a place like Mount Hood where there's a bunch of very excited children who will try anything because it's the 1 week that they get to snowboard during the summer. On top of that, they're trying to progress much faster than normal, and they are confronted with probably a better and more intense park than a lot of them have maybe even ever seen.
Yeah.
So I can see how that happens. And before we get into post hitting of the head and getting into the whole concussion side and things like that, is there anything at camp that that you guys try to instill in the kids to just, I don't know, be aware? I mean, I know there is a helmet policy, but I mean, I'm sure the coaches are trying to keep them within their limits and things like that, correct?
Totally. Yeah, we do concussion training with all the staff and then kind of like a more one-on-one with the coaches usually. And that'll kind of just, give them stuff to work, like to watch for, say if you think a kid did hit their head, and just to, I don't know, just kind of remind the coaches that, just to, sometimes you got to reel in teenage boys a little bit. So yeah, we definitely do concussion training for all the staff, and I think it helps. The coaches do a really great job kind of keeping an eye on all the kids and making sure they're not doing anything outside of their limits.
Yeah.
But conditions on Hood are different. The slush, a lot of kids aren't used to that, like the fast slush, and like you said, just trying to progress and being super excited, kind of showing off. I think it's kind of a combination of all those things that make it kind of a recipe for concussions. And with staff too, I honestly see a lot of staff concussions. Yeah. Like not as many because we don't have as many staff as children as we, throughout the summer. But and staff tend to not wear a helmet, so I think that's why it's also a little more prevalent.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
So what's the protocol? Kid hits his head. You don't know if there's a concussion or not, but he definitely hit his head hard enough to cause concern. What's step one?
So step one is we pretty much treat any minor, so anyone under 18, if they hit their head and they're a camper, we pretty much treat it like it's a concussion right there. If we get called over to the kid, my medics are really trained, but they're not necessarily trained to diagnose a concussion like on hill. That's kind of what Nurse Greg is for. So we usually will bring them down, have the medic drive them back to camp, and then we'll do an assessment. So what an assessment looks like is we'll check their balance and we'll check their eyes first. So we'll have them, stand still, put their hands on their hips, close their eyes for 30 seconds and hold it and see if they can stand like that. And if you have a concussion, it's usually really hard to hold your balance and you'll start to kind of sway. Okay. We'll also ask them to keep their eyes shut and look up while they have their hands on their hips. Yeah. And then we'll have them put their feet together, opposed to shoulder width apart, just to kind of see how their balance is. Some kids do really well with that. Some kids are completely swaying all over the place. And concussions can affect different people, people differently. So some kids might have a balance issue where another kid might have, his eyes are kind of going crazy. So we do another test called nystagmus test. So you have the kid follow your finger with their eyes. And if you hold your finger to the left or to the right, their eyes will kind of tick or bounce. And that's called nystagmus. And that usually only happens after some sort of a traumatic event.
And is it jumpiness across the spectrum of looking, or it goes to one side and then it jumps back?
It can be both. It's typically they'll follow my finger to the right, and then I'll hold it, and their finger will tick while they're looking at my finger. Their eyes will tick. Yeah. And some kids, they that'll bounce the whole time that they're tracking.
Wow.
And then some kids can't even like find your finger and follow it. So that's like a really telltale sign, because you can't fake that. You can't like fake that you don't have nystagmus or a balance issue. Stuff like that. So those are kind of like bigger signs. Some of the smaller ones are, you know, I just don't feel right. I feel funny. I feel tired. The bus ride gave me a headache because everybody was talking so much. Kind of stuff like that is just more like subtle signs that, all right, this is probably a concussion. So if, say, a kid just has like mild symptoms, like my hearing's a little funny, but his eye test was good.
They've got a headache.
Yeah, exactly. A headache. Exactly. Like, so we'll usually have them just kind of relax and drink water for like an hour, go back to their cabin, kind of hang out, kind of a deal. And then we'll recheck them after an hour. And usually if they still have any sort of symptoms after about an hour, we'll typically declare them concussed. Because if you say you hit your head and you're like, oh, I just have a headache, that can go away after like an hour and you could have no other symptoms. Whereas usually if you're still kind of feeling that like weird off feeling after an hour, then we usually will declare the kid concussed, and we will call the parents, and then we'll give them this kind of a run through. How I would explain it to a parent if a kid has a concussion is I would call them and explain that, you know, a concussion is a mild traumatic brain injury, so it should be taken seriously. And we found a lot of parents aren't educated on that, and they'll be like, oh, well, I paid, you know, this much money. Can he just go back out and ski tomorrow? And it's like, nope. And we kind of educate them on why that is. And at the end of the conversation, they're typically pretty, you know, thankful that we took the time to, you know, really make sure that the kid is, you know, good or not good to go skiing or snowboarding the next day.
Yeah, because a second hit is what's really serious, right?
Exactly. Way worse. Yeah. Second impact syndrome is what they call that. That's what got Kevin Pierce back in the day. So that's what made his brain injury so bad. He had hit his head a few days prior and never said anything.
Crazy.
So, super crazy. So yeah, so I called the parents and we just explain the injury, how he was feeling. I'd say 9 times out of 10, I'd have a kid that came down, they had a headache, they feel tired, and their main complaint is they just don't feel right. That's kind of like the number one complaint we get with concussions is I just feel off or not myself. So even if they don't have, you know, the eye nystagmus or the balance issue, it's still concerning to have a kid that has just like that off feeling. And so we do take that seriously. And so what the CDC recommends is actually a 5-step program.
And so in CDC, what does that stand for again?
It's the Center for Disease Control. So, you know, they regulate like everything, like, you know, vaccines, everything like that. But I've seen this STEP program in action, and it actually really works if it's done correctly. So how it works is you want to wait until you are totally symptom-free. So for some people, that could be like looking at their phone, scrolling Instagram makes them feel super weird and they like have to just put their phone down. Or for some people, it's listening to 2 or 3 people talk in the other room. It's way too much audio going on. They feel like, okay, I gotta get out of this room. So once all your symptoms are gone, you wake up, you're feeling normal. The next step is to try to get your heart rate up. So for some people, this first step could take 7 days to get to. It could take 2 weeks to get to. It could take 3 days to get to. Everybody's different. And say you have a kid that hits the big jump and completely wipes out, knocked unconscious, like ragdolls down the landing, they could recover in 5 days, where a kid that fell off the baby box and bumped their head could take 2 weeks to recover. You never really know how long it's going to take someone to get to that first step, which is having no symptoms. So I always say it's usually at least 7 days is what they recommend, is to wait till you have like absolutely, you know, nothing is bothering you. Some people, like I said, it's 3 days. So whenever that first, you wake up, you're feeling totally fine, you have no symptoms, then it's okay to do like go swimming or do a light walk or do something to kind of like get your heart rate up and get back into action. And say that feels great. All right, next day you can do a little bit more exertion. And you should do that for up to 5 days. And if you have no symptoms return at all, then you can kind of be cleared for your so to speak, activity. But say you do day 2 and you're like, all right, I'm going to go for a jog today, and that brings symptoms on, you're set all the way back to square one. So we've seen it a lot. We've had some people that are like, all right, I'm feeling really good. I think I'm going to try to jog today. And they go jog and they feel absolutely horrible. They get a headache. They get the dizziness back. They feel like, whoa, that was push myself way too much. So then they got to go back to step 1, which is pretty much doing nothing.
Yeah.
It sucks. So
yeah. So this is something that maybe you would do at camp, or like you might hold them for a couple days, or do you usually just send them home?
It depends. So if a kid is there for multiple sessions,
we'll
try to get them cleared in time. But if a kid's only there for 1 session, that's 8 days, 6 days on hill. So they're going home, unfortunately. You can't clear a kid that fast. But we definitely have kids that will stay and, stay for the in-between and take it super mellow. And then we're able to get them cleared by an MD before, like a doctor, so they can get back on hill. Yeah. So. Okay.
Directly following a concussion, one that you're like, okay, definitely concussion. I know there's a scare that people have that you're not supposed to fall asleep, but then I've heard recently that actually sleep is one of the best things. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, so I definitely agree. Sleep is one of the best things you can do. So we used to say wake people up because if you had, say, like a brain bleed, that could be really dangerous to sleep with. Okay. So now we do educate people on warning signs. So that's another thing I was going to
warning signs of a brain bleed?
So we call them warning signs. So if you get a concussion and say you remember everything and everything feels good and you just have a headache and you feel kind of dizzy, that's typically not going to be like a sign that you'd have like a brain bleed or need to go to the hospital. But say you get knocked out, or one of your pupils is bigger than the other, or you're puking like 2 or 3 times. Those are all like what we would call warning signs that there could be something more serious going on. Okay. So in that instance, we would send a kid to the hospital. For a friend, I would say definitely don't sleep. I would go get checked out. So yeah, definitely go get checked out. So I always tell, so the kids come back, if they don't have any of the warning signs, we'll actually send them to go to sleep and go sleep in their cabin. If you have warning signs of something more serious, that's, the puking, the pupils, different sizes, you got knocked unconscious, then you should definitely go get checked out.
So if you got knocked unconscious at all, that's like, try not to go to sleep right away at least.
They say if you do lose consciousness, you ideally should go get a CAT scan. Yeah, it's kind of like a big one.
I think that's a huge thing for people to know.
Yeah, definitely.
Because I think people tend to treat that lightly. Yeah. Like, oh yeah, I just got knocked out for a bit. But every time I hear that, I'm like, yeah. I mean, I've gotten concussions in the past, but I've never fully gone unconscious. And so I'm like, if I got to that point, I'd be like, I feel like this is pretty serious. Like
it is. No, it definitely is.
Okay,
and
that's good to know.
Definitely, always get checked out if you get knocked out. And I mean, I've taken kids to the hospital that have gotten knocked out and they were totally fine. Just had a concussion. CT came back clear. It's just totally worth checking. Because, I mean, it can happen to anybody. Do you remember that actress Natasha Richardson? She was like the mom in Parent Trap.
Oh, I can't picture her, but I know that movie. And
she was skiing on like a bunny hill a couple of years ago, and she fell and hit her head and had some warning signs, but ignored them and said she was fine. She never got checked out, and she like died in her sleep
that night.
So, so it's just totally.
That's scary.
Totally worth getting checked out. I've had a personal experience. My mom kind of had a freak accident a few years ago. She was getting a glass of water in the middle of the night, and she fell on the stairs and hit her head on our countertop and went back to sleep and woke up and had she couldn't talk, had a massive bleed in her brain. And we were able to get her to the hospital. She ended up being fine now, but it was just like a total traumatic thing. And I'm thinking, you can go to the freaking kitchen and get a glass of water and have that happen. So what about spinning onto rails? You know what I mean? So
you hit your head on a rail. I mean, I think immediately you should be like, all right,
gotta get checked out. Yeah, here? Exactly. Yeah. So it's definitely scary stuff. And just, I know I can't get everybody to wear a helmet. So I guess I'll just try to educate people on what to do if they hit their head. just because it's super important to take care of yourself. And, you know, I've had family members and friends now that are having issues with, you know, anxiety and depression and anger and just like, you know, stuff like that is definitely related to concussions, and you don't want to deal with that. And, you know, some people are fine, you know, not everybody's going to have, you know, repercussions afterwards, but it's definitely common. And just watching, you know, my brothers had a couple of really severe concussions snowboarding back when we were in high school. And, I just never want to see, you know, people go through that. It's not fun.
Yeah. And, I mean, I think it's unfortunate that it's not cool to wear a helmet, and that a lot of people prefer not to wear a helmet. I mean, I feel the same. I feel that, you know, people have every right to choose what they want to do.
Yeah. Definitely.
And I totally respect anyone who doesn't want to wear a helmet for whatever reason. Like, it's absolutely your choice. I choose to wear a helmet because I saw somebody get a traumatic brain injury, which I'll go into in a second. But I think it originates from skateboarding, because skateboarding was such a counterculture thing when it started.
Yeah.
And, you know, nobody wanted to wear a helmet. Nobody wears a helmet. I don't think you could successfully get sponsored if you wore a helmet
for skating.
Skating. Luckily, snowboarding is a little bit on the other side.
It's coming around. Yeah.
I've been successful wearing a helmet, and nobody seems to care too much. All my sponsors are super supportive. And actually, one of the big reasons that I even ride for a company like Smith is because I wear their helmets. And I'm an asset to them in that way. So
totally,
it definitely can even help my career in some ways. And I just want to play the devil's advocate for a second. There are people that say that, first of all, helmets don't really do much when you hit your head. There are people that say that they're more likely to hit their head when they have a helmet, and that the weight of it makes hitting your head worse, and just like the bulk of it, things like that. A couple things I want to say about those things is the Smith helmet that I wear, and I think all Smith helmets it's incredibly light. There's almost no weight at all. So I think that's a non-issue.
Do you have the maze?
No, I have the code.
Oh yeah, they weigh like absolutely nothing.
Super
crazy.
Light. But, you know, people are entitled to their opinions and their reasons, and totally respect that. But what do you say to those things that people say?
I guess, it's fine if you don't want to wear one. It's like a personal choice. But I've read the research, and I've seen it in action. I've seen a kid get completely knocked out, and, you know, if he didn't have his helmet on, who knows what would have happened. I'll use my boyfriend, Al Grogan, as an example. When he was in high school, he got in a bad snowboarding accident. He got a bad concussion, knocked unconscious. His helmet saved his life. While his helmet did save his life, it actually ripped his vocal cords. And so half of his vocal cords are paralyzed.
Whoa.
Yeah, so that was kind of a weird
from the
fluke
strap.
From the strap. Yeah, but the doctor said that with the force he hit his head, he would have probably had like a massive brain injury if he wasn't wearing his helmet.
Yeah.
And nowadays there's MIPS, there's all sorts of stuff that they're putting inside the helmets to like the sliding factors, and like honestly the scans like show that it does reduce concussions. And
and for those out there who don't know, MIPS is basically a technology inside the liner of the helmet that it allows the helmet to slightly rotate when you hit your head on the ground, which kind of takes away some of the brute force. I have it in all of my helmets, and I believe in it. I mean, like you said, the research shows good things. And helmet technology is always improving. So.
Yeah. Like there's always that fluke that happened to Al, but helmet probably saved his head. And then, you know, I've seen so many times where things would have been so much worse.
Yeah.
They weren't. And I guess if you think you hit your head more when you wear a helmet, that just might be, I don't know. It might just be kind of in your head. You're in your head about it. But
one of the main things with that is that these are people who say that are people who teeter or have just tried it a little bit.
Yeah. aren't wearing it consistently.
I'd be lying if I was saying that it wasn't different than not wearing a helmet.
Mm-hmm, totally.
Because it definitely is.
Yeah.
And there's an adjustment period, just like anything. Just like I used to never wear goggles, and I decided I'm going to start wearing goggles. And I kind of hated it at first. Then I got used to it, and now I snowboard just normally with goggles. Same thing can be with a helmet. Like if you are a person who doesn't wear a helmet and then you try a helmet, you're like, oh, this is weird. It's so bulky. I feel like I'm going to hit my head because there's so much attention to it. Yeah, maybe at first, but if you decide that that's something you're going to do, you're going to get used to it, and it's not even going to be a thought. I never think about my helmet. It's just always on my head.
Yep.
And also there are some people who selectively wear their helmet, which, again, people have their own choices to make, but I think that is a little silly for different reasons. One, that enhances the feeling of wearing a helmet, which enhances your awareness of it, more likely to hit your head. I don't know if that's true, but I think intuitively it could be. And also, just if you're trying to be a pro snowboarder, or you're making edits and things like that, it's kind of strange to see somebody with some clips with a helmet on and some clips without. It's just, it makes the helmet look way worse. Yeah. If all your clips you're wearing a helmet,
that's so true.
People don't really notice it.
Yeah.
If you only have a helmet and a couple, you look like you got a big fucking head. Yeah. That's just the plain fact.
Yeah, definitely.
And so that's another thing. And again, we're just spreading the positive message. If you're on the fence about wearing a helmet, I think it's a great idea. It's been great for me. But I'm going to reel it back to saying the reason that I started wearing a helmet, because when I was young, I wore a helmet because I was young, and young kids do that. My parents kind of made things like that. And then I got a little bit older, started watching more videos, and I was like, oh, well, I don't need a helmet. Like, I'm cooler than that.
I didn't wear a helmet in college either. I think it's just like you're stupid when you're 20.
Yeah. Well, actually, I had an early realization. I started wearing a helmet when I was 17.
Oh, good for you. Okay. I was definitely way older.
From 14 to 17, I was like, I'm not wearing a helmet. And it was fine. It was cool, whatever. And then I was at this one spot I was filming, and it was a super mellow down rail, just about as mellow as it can get, like really flat, really wide, like a 6-inch diameter tube, not very long. And we were just having a good time. It was me, my friend Josh Tranby, and our filmer, and just playing around the rail. Pretty much felt no risk. I'm like, oh, I'll try whatever on this thing. And Josh Tranby had gotten a couple tricks, and he was trying to get another one, and freak accident, he was getting on the rail, slipped out on his heels, hit his head on the corner of one of the stairs, instantly went into a seizure, turned black and blue, and stopped breathing. And I was like, I thought I'd witnessed him die right in front of me. It was like absolutely horrifying. And I was so scarred by it and so freaked out. I called the ambulance, and I was like screaming to them. I couldn't even really like talk that well, because I was in shock. Because I didn't check his pulse or anything, but I was like, he literally stopped breathing. He's right there, black and blue, not breathing. Like, what the fuck do we do?
That is so scary.
Luckily, after a couple, I don't know, maybe it was a minute, 2 minutes, a couple minutes, he started kind of like breathing again. And then the ambulance got there pretty quickly. He slowly started opening his eyes, things like that. He didn't remember at all the date. He had no idea what he was doing. He didn't even know the president, anything like that. Like totally knocked unconscious, doesn't know what is going on. And ever since that moment, I was like, this is the least danger I thought I was in of all the spots that I've hit this year. And he just had such a traumatic event that I thought he died. And I was like, I'm wearing a helmet. I don't care what people say. I'm wearing a helmet from now on. And it's never left my head. And that's another thing about selectively wearing a helmet. If you're going to wear a helmet when you think it's gnarly and decide not to when you think it's not gnarly, it is still gnarly. Like you never know what's going to happen, especially when you're strapped on a sliding snowboard.
Exactly.
Surrounded by hard objects. So that's my story.
It's crazy though. It usually takes like a traumatic event. To, like,
I mean, if that never happened, if that never happened, I could be standing here right now and never would have put a helmet on. And so, it's just
Yeah, I didn't wear one till my mom's accident, which was probably like 3 years ago. I mean, I'd wear it at like Mount Bohemia, like you said, selectively. So,
Yeah.
no, Bohemia tree runs, I'd wear it for that.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, I'm not doing anything too crazy, but like you said, you never know.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, my mom, a year after her injury, she started having seizures randomly. And that's another thing with like brain injuries is even concussions. That can be a symptom of concussions that happen later. So it's just like that kind of stuff. If you've ever seen anyone have a seizure, it's like the scariest thing ever. To watch. So
is so unlike anything you've ever seen.
It's really
Do.
scary. Yeah. So we had an injury at camp a few years ago where a kid fell off. He went off the skate ramp on accident. Mm-hmm. He was skating it like a mini, and the airbag wasn't inflated on campus, and he fell and bonked and started having a seizure, and it was. Oh. It's terrifying. And so that's kind of, it's just seeing all this stuff like on a day-to-day basis is like, you just don't want to see your friends have to deal with that stuff and your like loved ones. But just take care of your heads, I guess, is the biggest thing.
Yeah. It's interesting at Dew Tour, everybody's required to wear a helmet. And it's so funny to me because you see all these people who never wear
one.
Yeah. Who just have everything on like they normally would, and then they just plop it on top of their head.
It's like, is that even their helmet?
Yeah. Oh, it's so
That's
funny.
Awesome.
Oh, another thing I wanted to ask you about. I don't know if you have any experience, knowledge, or opinion about this, but definitely the trend in wearing a helmet is wearing your goggles underneath the helmet, which intuitively I'm like, doesn't that kind of sacrifice the helmet in a way?
It probably does a little bit. I do that. I think it
probably
definitely does. Yeah, I think...
I don't.
Yeah, no.
Because I'm kind of a like nerd, and I like to use everything that I have properly, how it's designed to be used. And I don't know. I mean, it'd be interesting to if
test.
There's any research or anything like that.
I have no idea if it does.
But I just think that if you have things on underneath, like your goggles, which also have those like hard pieces,
probably not fitting as properly.
It's not fitting properly. You don't have a proper size necessarily because you have to have it bigger than your head to fit those things underneath.
Totally.
And then I see so many skiers who wear helmets that it literally kind of like what I was saying. People at Dew Tour, it's just plopped on top of their head, like
flies off. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it doesn't even cover the back of their head. Yeah. Like you're not even going to protect yourself if you hit it. So I don't know. That's just something too. I'd be interested to know more about because real like people who wear helmets all the time and like even Olympics, everything like that, like people wear the goggles underneath the helmet.
Right.
And what also is so interesting to me is like, okay, if that's the case, then why the hell aren't any helmet goggle combos designed for that?
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah.
Like, why isn't there a helmet that you can, or that has goggles that have straps that basically connect to the front of the helmet that it looks like it's going behind your head, but really you're not sacrificing the integrity of the helmet.
Yeah. That's
or something like that. You know what I mean? I mean, why not?
That's a great idea.
That's how people want to wear it. Yeah. Why not make it that way?
The kids that I work with, the teenagers, all wear it like you, like how you're supposed to, like helmet with the goggles over. So maybe they're trying to bring it back. But,
yeah, I mean, I'm trying to make it cool. I don't know.
I think it's just like a habit. I've been doing it for so long.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mean to talk down on it because I don't know, but I'm just curious. Yeah.
I'm sure it's better than not wearing one, but I wonder if it's like, it probably does something with the fit.
Yeah. Who knows? Yeah. So these are all things that you've experienced with kids and what you do with a kid. Now, for most of the listeners out there who are not a kid, what's the protocol for them?
Yeah, so it's about the same. I would say, I know it's hard when you're, a grown adult to take like 7 days off of doing something you do every single day. Yeah. And, you might say after a day or two, you're like, oh, I'm fine. Like, suck it up. Like, get out there. I would just say listen to your body is like the biggest thing I tell people. And ideally you should follow like the 5-step program. So, wait till you're symptom free and then slowly ease yourself back into activity, whether that's swimming, walking, jogging, kind of
You
stuff
want
like
to
that.
like kind of more specifically detail the 5-step?
Yeah, for sure. So, so say you hit your head a week ago and you're finally starting to feel like yourself again. You don't have any symptoms. Reading's fine, watching TV is fine, scrolling on your phone is fine, and you wake up in the morning and you feel like yourself again, then that's time where you can do step 1. So step 1 is going to be just a little bit of exercise, whether it's like running an errand or going for a walk. Driving is actually a good step that I do with adults. Okay. So I'll say, see how like going and like driving your car feels. If you've really got, bad symptoms like visual symptoms, driving can be really difficult to focus on, and you'll kind of like lose focus, like where you're going or stuff like that, and your reaction time can be slowed. So driving's like a good first step to kind of see, like, go run an errand, run to the bank, see if that makes you feel funny at all. If doing some light stuff for a day you feel fine, then second day is going to be to exert yourself a little bit more. So like go for a jog or something, or go out with friends, go see a movie, like kind of like get back into your daily routine. And you want to just do it slowly, and just to make sure you don't like aggravate those symptoms. So if you push yourself too fast and you're like, oh, I'm fine, I'm going to go run or go snowboard today, that could bring on your symptoms and you could regress and be right back to where you started. So they say it's 5 steps, but it's really, they say it to be like 5 days of raising your heart rate, doing activity, and then after you've done that for 5 days straight, you should be like good to go. It's essentially like how they say it. Cool. So I would say like the average concussion recovery time is like 7 to 14 days, because it's like 7 days of like resting and having yourself feel back to normal, and then like 7 days of like slowly getting yourself back up to activity to like get back out there and do whatever you do. So yeah, they say it's like steps, but I guess it's more just like days of like slow activity. Yeah.
And so as far as actually being on hill riding, let's say you're by yourself, you hit your head pretty hard. Is there anything right off the bat that somebody can do? Or just kind of, I mean, obviously you notice if it's like, you said within the hour, if sounds and maybe it's a little too bright, or scrolling through your phone, things like that. But is there
I just say
else?
Not really, just not like, don't push yourself. Like if you hit your head, I would just, every time you hit your head, you should just like go in for like a drink, like go get some water and like
just take
just
a breather.
Chill for a sec. Don't like, oh, I'm fine is what I always see like teenagers doing, is they just want to hop right back up, and it's like, sit down, like take a breather. Sometimes it can take time for symptoms to onset too. So sometimes you'll be like, I'm completely fine, and then all of a sudden an hour later you're like, I have to puke, so that's why it's always good to just go and rest right off the bat. That's what I'll tell anyone, kid, adult, whatever. Just go inside. If you're by yourself and you don't think you can drive, like call for a friend, kind of a thing. Driving's a big one. People kind of overlook, I think. They don't realize that like your reaction time is slowed quite a bit when you hit your head. Your brain's kind of like, whoa, and can take a little bit to catch up. So, I say be cautious with driving, and then just listen to your body. And I don't really know any of my friends that will go to the hospital unless they're in like really, really bad shape, kind of a thing. So that's when I always like to talk about the warning signs, which are vomiting, uneven pupils, not knowing where you are all of a sudden, not remembering where you were like earlier that day, like weird memory lapses, just like really sudden kind of like dramatic symptoms. Those are always like the warning signs that I talk about. If somebody has multiple concussions, do they start to become more susceptible? Absolutely.
Okay. Because Chris Grenier, when I was talking to him, I don't know if you listened to that one yet, he was saying how he's hit his head a lot of times, and now he'll just like hit his head and he'll just puke, like it'll just come right out.
Oh, really? That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's not good, Chris. Yeah, no, you're definitely more susceptible to them. Like each time you get one, you actually lose like a split second of reaction time, like every time you hit your head. They talk about this in the Crash Reel, the movie about Kevin Pierce, a lot, like in a lot of depth. But yeah, so that's why once you get a concussion, you're just usually prone to getting more. And it's not necessarily like your brain's used to getting them. I think you're just like you're like just more susceptible to like the symptoms too. So like if you have a traumatic brain injury like my mom or like Kevin Pierce, like if he hits his head again, he could be like, that could be like it. You know what I mean? So when you have like a bleed or something like that traumatic, then that's like, yeah, you got to be super cautious because that second one could be really bad. You could, you know, lose function on the side of your body, speech, all that kind of stuff. Walking, you know, stuff we all take for granted. So, yeah.
And can anything like those things that bother you if you do have a concussion, like loud noises and things like that, maybe screens, can those things make a concussion worse, or are those just symptoms that just kind of cause discomfort?
They can make symptoms worse. So,
but not the actual brain.
I'm glad you asked that. So they used to say like, oh, you have a severe concussion or you have like a mild concussion. So now we don't really say that. We just say, okay, you have a concussion and you have mild symptoms or severe symptoms. Okay. So like all concussions are, I guess, they're treated the exact same. It's just depending on the symptom set, that'll kind of determine how they call it. So yeah, they used to say like, oh, you have a mild concussion. Now they'll just say, okay, you've got a concussion with mild symptoms. But just because you have mild symptoms, that doesn't mean it could take you 3 months to get better. You know, if you have a mild symptom concussion. So that's kind of why they got away from that labeling. Because I've seen a kid get completely knocked out, be like puking his guts out, feeling terrible, go to the ER, and like 3 days later he's fine. And then a kid that like barely fell and it's like takes like 3 months to feel better. So you don't necessarily the blow itself doesn't necessarily determine like the length or severity of your symptoms. So yeah, now we're going more for like symptoms kind of determine everything now. Yeah.
So. And then as far as the recovery process, is there anything other than just rest that can help? Like do you know anything about any supplements or any nutrition advice, anything like that?
I've only done a little bit of reading into that stuff, but like antioxidants, like berries and stuff, they say are like antioxidants are super good for your brain and like healing, and like yoga and like meditation, stuff like that has had really good feedback. As far as supplements, I'm not sure on that. Yeah, I'm not sure if there's any specific ones that would be good, but I'm sure there are. And I know that there's like stuff coming out now called like brain training. So people Chris, like someone who's had like a shit ton of concussions, the stuff, they hook you up to all this stuff. My uncle, he was a kickboxer for a long time, and now he's having some, he's had a million times, and says the brain training is like awesome. And I don't really know exactly what goes into it, and I know there's like a lot of new research with it. But it's kind of like you would do PT for like a knee injury or for a shoulder injury.
Training your brain.
Right. So it's kind of the same idea for your head. And I know there's like little games on your phone you can do that I've heard people love, just kind of like making your brain quicker. So I think that's all like newer research, but I think it's definitely worth, looking into. I've heard like people that are having bad like anxiety or depression or stuff like that from concussions, like the brain training can be really beneficial, and stuff like that. So it's really cool. We're finally learning like a lot more about head injuries in the last like 10 years.
Yeah, it's really exciting.
Crazy. The brain is like, we still don't know that much
about
the brain.
Neuroscience is still in its infancy.
Yeah, it really is. So
I've been pretty interested in a lot of that stuff. Lately, I've just gone on a learning journey of everything from psychedelics to meditation and neuroscience, and just so curious about the whole field. And
it's so crazy.
And concussions, I think, naturally are in that same realm, and it's just so fascinating.
Yeah, they're the CTE stuff. So like the brain condition that they're finding like professional football players have, and like hockey players. they're finally able to do more research on that and stuff. And I don't know if it's as much of a concern for snowboarding because it is, unless you're repeatedly getting concussions, which I know a lot of people are.
Hitting your head is an integral part of
snowboarding, like football. Like I can't even watch football anymore. I literally, it just makes me sick to see like they're just smashing their heads over and over again, and it just bums me out. And there's actually an NHL clip that some of the guys from the Blackhawks did, and they're talking about like their issues with major like concussion symptoms afterwards, and they're like, I would have not put my body through this if I had known I was going to feel like this like 10 years later. And it's just like educating and
have you seen the movie Concussion?
No, I haven't.
Oh, you haven't?
No.
Oh my God, it's so good. It is so good.
What's it on?
It's it's a film, it's a movie.
Okay.
Will Smith is the main actor.
I've never even heard of it.
He plays I might be wrong, but I believe it's a South African doctor. He plays that character, basically the doctor who kind of was like, whoa, football, like what's going on here? Like something's happening. And was trying to bring awareness of all that stuff. And it's a beautiful movie. It's a beautiful story. And it really puts into perspective all this stuff about CTE and football. And it tells the story of the people who, there was even, I apologize for not knowing his name, but there was that football player who had it so bad that he killed himself, but he shot himself in the chest so that his brain remained intact so that they could see how bad it really was after he killed himself. And again, beautiful movie. You should check it out. And anybody who is even moderately interested in how important it is to be aware of how severe concussions can be. And also just Will Smith is like the best actor ever. Definitely give it a watch.
Yeah. Same with the Crash Reel. It's been like 10 years since that came out.
I actually haven't seen that. So I need to see that.
It's really emotional. It's really good.
I can imagine.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, I'll definitely check that out. So when I was at Dew Tour, one of the events that I did, Street Style, it's a little rail jam that they do in Breckenridge, and just a little setup, and people can come and watch. And I thought I was doing pretty good, and I was feeling it, things like that. And then I kind of screwed up on something, and I hit my head. And I haven't hit my head in a long time.
Oh, okay.
I think like years maybe.
Yeah.
And it wasn't super hard, but it was enough that it definitely gave me a headache. I didn't get any head ringing or anything like that. And I was kind of like, oh shit. And I like sat up and I was like, okay, like totally fine.
Yeah.
I know exactly what happened. Definitely got a headache because I just hit my head. And I was really bummed at myself because I tried something stupid. I tried to just like my contestness got into me, and I tried to front flip out this thing that I hadn't even 50'd yet. And I just went straight to my back and head. It was so stupid. Man. And it was really hard landing.
Yeah.
Luckily it wasn't that big, so I didn't, I knew it wasn't it wasn't a big deal. But I took a second, I stepped away from the contest, and I just sat on the ground for a little bit, and I was checking in with myself for a good 10 minutes at least. And I was kind of like, I don't know if I should keep snowboarding, even though it wasn't anything that I was like, oh, I got a concussion. But I was like, I just, this stuff scares me so much. And especially the like hitting your head twice, it's just scary. And so I wanted to make sure I was okay. And then I ended up getting back on the drop in and just being like, okay, I'm not going to try to win this anymore. I'm going to just do things that I know I can do, not put myself at really any risk, just have a good time. And I started out doing really mellow stuff, and my balance was good. I was landing tricks. And so I was kind of like, okay, I think I'm good. Like, but I didn't really know anything in that moment to be like, if I am concussed, like what should I do? But it seems that I did a pretty good job. Like I was thinking clearly. I could like nothing was really bothering my head or anything like that other than just the headache that I had, which ended up going away in like, 20 minutes, maybe 30.
Yeah.
and then it didn't come back. So
You did that exactly right. Like I said, listen to your body.
yeah.
You just feel
So
like
I was happy that I did that, and it's cool to have some reaffirmation
yeah,
of
for sure.
just that stuff. And I think, anybody who hits their head, especially in a contest, it's easy to do, and it's easy to just try to push it off and keep going, but that contest is not worth it.
Totally not
at
worth
all.
it.
Even for me, where I was like, I knew it was minor, I knew I didn't hit it hard, but I was like, I'm not gonna try to win this and huck my meat anymore because, I really value my brain and I value my career, and
Yeah.
you
No,
never
that's
know.
smart.
You never know.
Super smart.
Yeah. Well, is there anything else you can think of regarding any of this stuff? Concussions, brain injuries, anything like that?
No, I think I covered
Do you know?
it.
Is there are helmets that have soft padding and hard padding?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a preference?
I don't really know too much about it. I actually really like the soft padding
Yeah.
ones. Al just got one. It's like the
Yeah.
soft shell, like Giro. I don't know. I think just anything on your head at this point is like going to be better than nothing.
Yeah.
And
I wear the hard foam stuff just
Okay.
because I don't know, that is just what the helmets that I wear have.
Yeah.
But I have worn soft ones in the past, and in my experience, a lighter hit is so much better on a soft
That
one.
makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think maybe on a really hard hit, it might be better the other way. But yeah, I agree. I think either one, whatever works for you, the soft ones are definitely more comfortable.
Yeah. No, my biggest takeaway, I guess, I didn't want to come off as like the helmet police like I usually do, but just if you do hit your head, just take care of yourself regardless if you have a helmet on or not. Is kind of what I just wanted to really.
Well, we'll leave it at that.
Okay.
And and just to say, everybody out there, we are, we're not sticklers. We're not trying to be squares. We're just trying to be informative for the people who care and want to make these decisions. And, everybody's got to be informed so that they can make an informed decision. So I think we did a good job at least opening the doors. So
Definitely.
thank you for sitting down with me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Jesse.
Of course. I'll catch you later.
See ya.
Bye. Thanks for tuning in, guys and girls. I hope you enjoyed the show. If there are any experts out there who know a lot about this topic and have something to add, please reach out to me. This is something I want people to know as much about as possible. And if anybody out there has any other topics that they really want to hear about, or any other ideas for this type of episode where I tackle one topic specifically with someone else, please reach out to me. You can do that by emailing me at boardbagstudio@gmail.com, or you can reach out to me on Instagram at JediPauls. And other than that, I hope you guys have a beautiful day. Oh, I also would like to reiterate, we are not medical professionals, and this does not substitute for medical advice. Neither are we affiliated with We Are Camp or Nurse Greg. Thanks, guys. See you later.